All right, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode. Who the hell asked a midweek episode? Byron and Slade here, and Slade, we got some friends joining us today, don't we?
That's right. So this is a special episode that we're doing today. It's going to be a bit more of a podcast, like we originally claimed to be. We're going to talk about the Pokemon Presents, and I have two of my very dear friends here that I've met through our local Smash scene. You already know one of them, Steeler from MarioPartyTV.
Hey, what's up?
And then my other friend, Orf, who is, excellent Wolf player, but he's also just really chill homie and a great fan of Pokemon.
True. So glad that you mentioned I'm such a good Wolf player. Also accurate.
Yeah, see, he's really dope. He beats my ass every time we play.
Yeah. Don't come to Smash tournaments and verify that information. I can either confirm nor deny.
But yeah, so what do you got lined up for us, Slade? This is your idea for the
All
week.
right. So we're going to talk about the Pokemon Presents, and I'm going to go over a bevy of questions regarding most of the topics. Spoilers, we're going to talk mostly about Legends Z-A, but we're not going to completely forgo everything else that was announced. So let's go ahead and just get the minor stuff out of the way first.
Mm-hmm.
What were your guys' thoughts on the announcements made for Pokemon Go, Unite, Cafe, Masters, etc.?
I'll be completely honest and say that I do not play any of those games and I do not have a strong opinion.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I expected that to go. Okay, I guess we'll just start with the Unite. Sam, what do you think about Unite adding Baridon, Fall Links, which was a crazy one, and Sarah-Ledge?
Phalanx is cool. Yeah,
Right.
so I'm not a huge fan of like a lot of the decisions they've made in Unite, and so I haven't played it in a while, just based on like the monetization and like the game balance and
The game balance,
the
especially.
matchmaking and pretty much any aspect of that game, except for the roster. They have really like nailed it as far as like choosing interesting Pokemon. They have a good mix of like, yeah, this isn't necessarily everyone's favorite Pokemon, but it'd be interesting to see in this kind of like, MOBA battle format.
Right.
Phalanx is a great example. Who else is really interesting? I mean, there's a huge, but yeah, I mean, I really like the roster that they've got for the game, and I actually know friends who are getting back into it because of like some new Pokemon they've released. So I think that's really cool. Just they need to make sure they keep it balanced because oh my god, I hear everyone complain about like all the legendaries are busted. Please nerf, and then anytime they nerf something else pops up and is like insane. So I don't know. It's just the nature of the beast, I guess, with a MOBA.
Yep, the
Yeah.
whack-a-mole of MOBA.
Yeah. I heard Zacian is really broken in that game, which is
bro, you have no idea.
hilarious.
Yeah.
So
Mewtwo is also
incredibly
super broken.
more
I
friendly.
mean,
yeah.
So to put some context into this, 'cause I actually had the stats of when both Zacian and Mewtwo were released compared to like other broken champions and other games, for example, like Kassadin and League. So when Zacian was released and went unpatched for basically 2 to 3 months, he had a 79% win rate and had a 100% pick rate.
Wow, 100%.
And you could pick multiple of the same Pokemon on both teams. So like there could be a Zacian on both teams. So every game was guaranteed to have at least one Zacian. And the win rate is also going to be inflated because you're going to see, one on each team, so one's going to win.
Right.
But at the same time, the fact that he has such a high win rate also spells to the fact that when you don't have a Zacian on your team, you basically just lose.
Yeah.
And it took them 3 months before they gave him a love tap. And then after a month of straight outcry, they finally gutted him. And then we went through the entire cycle all over again with Mega Mewtwo X and Mega Mewtwo Y.
Yeah.
Lord knows they couldn't make that mistake just once. I would argue the Mega Mewtwo's were worse, because it was more extended because they released Mega Mewtwo X first. He had an 82% win rate, which is even more insane. It's still that same 100% pick rate. But at least they guttered him like almost immediately. Only after they released Mega Mewtwo Y, who was just as broken, but way easier to play. And then they waited 2 months before guttering that one. So
Oh,
I think you
Lord.
would just like mash A, like just mash the attack
it
button with
basically,
Y,
like,
and you would win.
Yeah.
Like anybody could,
the
your little 5-year-old sister could win and carry a game of Unite.
yes, basically it was kind of like the best comparison I could make. Mega Mewtwo Y was essentially like playing Vayne, where like you straight up for 5 seconds, you're just like a basic normal attacking Pokemon that's already really powerful. And then every 5 seconds you turn into this hyper god of untouchable death. Because you can push them away. And by the time, even with Pokemon with multiple movement skills, by the time they even get back to you, they're already dead.
Yeah.
Lamau.
Like, it basically was the most brain dead 80 carry. Like, I'm just going to hold the A button, and occasionally when they get close to me, press my skill.
Game balance.
It's
Lamau.
pretty awful.
Lamau.
So, yeah, Pokemon Unite's balance is a disaster, to say the least.
Yep.
Well, if the pattern follows and I hear Miraidon is coming into the game,
oh, no.
Yes.
get ready.
Get ready. Get ready. Something
Alright.
else y'all need to get ready for is playing the Pokemon TCG on the go in 2024 with Pokemon trading card game Pocket. Interesting.
Yeah, so JD, I'm kind of curious. What are your thoughts on that? Because I actually thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, TCG in any context, like Yu-Gi-Oh or whatever, there's always that barrier of buying the cards, and the best cards are so expensive and relatively rare and everything. And so turning it into an app and giving people that avenue to compete in TCG, I think is really cool. Because the physical card game is still pretty popular to this day. I mean, they play it at Worlds.
Yeah.
Yes.
But having an app so that other people can enjoy it and get into it without as much of a barrier of entry is obviously a good thing.
Now put it on a Nintendo system, you cowards.
Yeah, that's the
You
only complaint I have
cowards.
is
True.
they should have also put it on Switch. But, I'm not really complaining about that too much because I think reducing the barrier entry, like you said, is really important.
Yeah.
I also think it's kind of cool just to see this game from like over 25 years ago kind of get the same treatment other card games have been getting. Like, you could play Magic online now. You could play like Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
I guess whatever the League of Legends one's called, it always
Hearthstone?
slips my mind.
Runeterra.
Oh, Runeterra.
Legends Runeterra.
Yeah.
You can tell that was the direction that like those kind of games were moving in. So it's nice to see Pokemon get with the trend. Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think the main thing was just kind of reducing the barrier of entry and making it more accessible to casual players. It's really interesting too because I don't know if you guys know about how the online TCG stuff has gone for Pokemon, but they had this like client that you'd have to download to your computer that they used for the longest time, but it was like pretty outdated. And I think within the last year or two, they finally retired their original client and introduced a new one. And the new one is incredibly buggy and the rules as they play out in the game like weren't even accurate to how the game is actually played in some cases.
Lord.
It's been a huge mess with like the new version of the TCG.
Wait,
so part of me thinks like this mobile version is just them being like, yeah, let's just do something else and try and salvage the TCG online, at least TCG in this way, which it looks interesting. It looks really cool.
Yeah
So at that point you'd be saying there might be some cause for concern with this mobile version then?
I mean, yeah, I mean anything with Pokemon, you gotta take with some caution, but
You said it, folks.
Yeah.
yeah, but it looks promising, and the artwork is really interesting. The fact that it's like a little bit more immersive, and yeah, I don't know, we'll see.
Hey, maybe it'll be on Switch 2 or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm not
maybe.
holding my breath.
Not yeah, but obviously the big announcement, the big thing that was announced at this Pokemon Presents was, I think to the shock of a lot of us, was Pokemon Legends Pizza, aka Pokemon
Lord.
Legends Z-A. So, Gens
Za or the?
I just call it ZA.
Z
Z through A, guys. Clearly,
Z through. I'm just
Yeah,
calling it ZA.
it's
You
like
can't convince
it's
me
like the
otherwise.
Amazon logo but backwards. But yeah,
Okay.
new Legends game. Actually shocking to me, in my opinion. I didn't think we would get another Legends game, to be quite honest. But maybe
yeah,
maybe
and
I'm
even
crazy.
if you did, you thought it'd be a Johto game, or but nobody was expecting Kalos.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
that
definitely.
was so out of left field for me. Speaking about it a bit earlier, I think in a weird way that they picked the correct region, because out of all the regions that they could have chose for like another Legends game, they picked a region that direly needed the most expanding upon.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we all know for a fact that Pokemon Z is something they were developing and making plans to release, and then development hell occurred, and something happened, and that just got scrapped entirely. So it's cool that they are actually circling back to that and giving people that game kind of in a different way.
Yeah. The first big detail is releasing simultaneously worldwide in 2025. That's interesting. That's very interesting.
Absolutely. So let's touch on that a bit.
Yeah.
So with the release window being announced in 2025, fun fact about this game, this means that this game, between releases of not only Pokemon Times but also DLC, will be the longest window a Pokemon game has been announced and developed for since the release of Pokemon Black and White 2. Meaning this is the first modern Pokemon title to get more than 2.5 years of development time. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
That's actually fucking crazy. That's actually insane to me.
It's great. I mean, if anything, Scarlet and Violet definitely had the we rushed this vibe to them.
Yeah.
Putting it
Yeah.
lightly.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're taking their time is always good. And I mean, yeah, I can wait a year for this game. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
What do you think, Sam?
Yeah, I was curious about that, so I'm glad you had the facts of like how long the gap is and how that compares, because they've been churning this stuff out like butter.
Yep.
Um,
Good old churn.
So I don't know. The thing is, if this was announced for a 2024 title, I would have no hope at all in it being interesting, because it looks like they're doing something very, very different from even Legends Arceus and obviously from any other mainline game. So I think they need that time to make sure they know what they're doing and they stick the landing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But we don't really have much details about like what it actually is going to be.
Yeah.
A lot of speculation, of course, but
Yeah.
I'm sure we can get into that.
Or hell, even when it's gonna release. Which, real quick, I'll just throw this question out. Do y'all think this is early 25 or late 25?
Oh,
I wanted to touch on that. So
Yeah.
to compare it to something they previously out, Legends Arceus was announced as an early title that year. They said early, I believe it was 2021.
Yeah,
when they announced
yeah,
it. I could have my year completely wrong.
No, I'm pretty sure it was early. Yeah.
They did not clarify that it was early 2025. They just said 2025.
Yeah, which
and Nintendo, for the most part, has been pretty consistent about clarifying whether it's an early part of the year title, or if they don't have that information, they just say that year.
Or like a season, like we had at the partner showcase.
So, fun fact, because I said that with the DLC, it would have the longest Scarlet and Violet.
Yeah.
It would have the longest development cycle of any game since Pokemon Black and White 2.
Yeah.
If we are excluding the DLC,
Mhm.
then it has the potential longest development cycle of any Pokemon title ever.
Ever?
As in ever.
Bro, that's actually crazy.
So,
in the nearly 30 years.
And that's assuming this shit comes out in January.
Which it's not.
Every month they take after that would only be better and better news for me.
Wow.
New record.
So,
record.
Yeah, I think outside of them announcing the game itself was the best announcement of the entire presentation, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah,
because I think for a lot of people, just seeing them churn out a title every year and it get progressively worse and worse until you see what a shit show that Scarlet and Violet were.
Yeah.
It would have been hard to feel any hope for this game whatsoever if at a release date of this year.
Yeah, and I guess maybe this is indicative just in a general Nintendo sense that 2024 is probably going to be a light year.
Yeah.
Especially with no Pokemon game as the big holiday game. And we can get into that discussion on some other episode of what's Nintendo going to do for their holiday.
Yeah, I'm a little confused about that because obviously Z-A is announced as a Switch game.
Yeah.
And before this announcement, I think I and a lot of people were like, oh yeah, we're getting a Switch 2 this year. Now, it doesn't mean we won't, because Pokemon has definitely released games for, consoles that have been superseded, basically. Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon came out after the Switch had already released. But, I'm a little bit bummed that it's going to be on the Switch, that they kind of confirmed that.
Yeah.
And I feel like the Switch is getting kind of long in the tooth and is showing its age, but the way Pokemon or Game Freak has developed these games doesn't help in that regard.
Yeah.
I am still of the belief there's going to be this is Legends Z-A is going to be a Switch title. I think the first Game Freak Pokemon game on Switch 2 or whatever the next system is will be Generation 10 in 2026 for the 30th anniversary. It just lines up way too well for them to not do it. And yes, Nintendo have done stupid things even when things line up and they don't do it, but I feel like it's Pokemon Company. They're gonna do it.
Well, it also lined up with their regular release window of Pokemon releases too, once every 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, so
like I said, the fact that this is going to be pushing 4 is actually insane to me.
Yeah, and you know what? Call me crazy. I think this is a mid-year release in 2025. Like a summertime, like a late spring, early summer title.
I could see that.
Call me crazy on that.
Maybe like a last hurrah.
Crazy.
Yeah, last hurrah for Switch 1. Hoorah.
All right, so
they're saying that it's Nintendo Switch systems. I think they just, I don't know. I think it could be on Switch 2, and they just aren't ready to announce Switch 2 yet.
It's possible. It's possible.
I think that's possible as well. I also think because of the element of backwards compatibility that the Switch 2 is most likely going to have, I think that's something that is probably the worst kept secret in the industry right now.
Besides the fact it exists.
Yeah, besides the fact that it exists.
Yeah.
I think it could be one of those games that's developed for the Switch, but will have an improved experience on the Super Switch or the Switch 2 or whatever they're going to call it.
Possibly.
That being said, I think there's and I don't want to get too much into Switch speculation here because this Pokemon episode.
Yeah.
I think, the idea that if Nintendo's going to have the Switch 2 come out this year or something, they're going to announce it between March and June and then sell it for the holiday.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine at that point, if Pokemon isn't the major title, they're going to have something else, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to wait until that happens before announcing it.
Yeah. Which they have a couple things they could be, but we'll talk about that another day.
Yeah, but the main point I'm trying to get at with that is, Sam had mentioned with Sun and Moon 2.
Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, yeah.
Coming out
Sun and
after
Moon
the Switch
2,
is released. Pokemon has historically been late to the new platform
Yep.
for pretty
Yeah.
much all time.
Yep.
Pokemon Black
Yep.
and White 2 came out for the DS, even though the 3DS was already a year and a half old at that point.
Yeah, wasn't Gen 4 a Game Boy game when there was the DS, or am I thinking?
Yeah, Pokemon Emerald, the Pokemon DS was out, but Pokemon Emerald was still a GBA title.
Oh, yeah.
You are correct.
Yeah.
So,
Can I say something
this
about
is
Black
something
2,
that's
White
on
2 real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to say when that game was announced, I was so annoyed. I was like, why are we still making games for the DS? This should be a 3DS game. Come on, Game Freak. Give me a 3DS Pokemon game.
God,
Little
Steeler.
did I know that was going to be the end of an era and a swan song to Pokemon games being good, complete, thoughtful creations. Anyway,
Steeler, you're
I still
sounding
like X and Y.
Steeler, you're sounding like every Switch owner in 2017 when like fucking there were so many 3DS ports. Like, oh, Bowser's Inside
Right,
Story.
yep.
Come on,
Yeah.
come on,
Bro, that was
fucking.
100% me. I was malding when they announced Bowser's Inside Story for the
God,
3DS.
yeah.
I was like, it's
Mhm.
already playable on the platform. Come on.
Yeah. Oh lordy.
Oh Lord.
But yeah, so Slade, I guess I'll let you take the lead. Dive deep into the lore.
Okay.
Into the game.
Okay, so first I want to get your guys' initial reactions to the announcement. Like, were you excited? Was it like a downer? Like, what was your guys' reactions to Pokemon Legends Z-A?
I mean, I was definitely excited to see it. Like, I wanted to see another Legends title, period, because I
Same.
did like Legends Arceus, and I figured they sold enough titles at that they would do something else with that concept. I definitely did not expect Kalos, but there's a lot of interesting things that they could do with that. Obviously, Arceus took us into the past of Sinnoh, and they made up a lot of stuff for this. With this, like, there was this big giant war laser beam shit that happened 3,000 years ago in Kalos. So are we being conscripted into the giant laser beam war, or is this the post-apocalyptic Kalos after the laser beam? I mean,
I actually
something
wanted to
like
touch
that
on
will
Could be
happen,
both.
right? Like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually something I was going to touch on later. Sam, what do you think about it?
Yeah, I was super excited watching. Like, I could tell it was Kalos. Pretty much right off the bat, when like just the French building architecture, kind of, I was like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
shit. And yeah, like we said, Kalos really needs it. I feel like it's the one generation or the one region that was really kind of skipped in a way and didn't really get fleshed out, and we all know that. So yeah, I was like, oh hell yeah, finally! Like, yeah, I like Unova, but honestly, I like Kalos as a region a little bit more. So let's see more of that. And then they released, or they revealed the title. And I was like, oh, all right. I mean, it could still be good, but I was really hoping it'd be just Pokemon Z, to be honest.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it should have
I
been.
get
It should have been.
I don't know. I am also a Legends Arceus enjoyer. I think ever since the release of Black and White 2, it is my favorite modern Pokemon title. I feel like every release after Black and White 2 has had either one issue or another that just caused me to enjoy the experience, less. That's not to say that, I hate X and Y or Ultra Sun, Ultraman, all those games. It's just I feel like Legends Arceus shook up the formula in a really good way. And the battle style in particular kind of changed the challenge that you would normally get when you're playing Pokemon title in a way that made it feel legitimately more challenging. So
Yeah.
I will say this about my initial reaction. I got baited really hard by Masters announcing Silver with his Mega Tyranitar. And then the unknown all over the beginning of that
Uh-huh.
trailer. And Gen 2 is my favorite generation for those who don't know. So I was like, oh my god, it's a Johto game, let's go. And then I saw, the building plans. I'm like, no, this isn't Johto, this is Kalos.
Yeah.
But then I came around, and I'm like, you know what? Kalos did need expanding on. Johto's already got hard goals over. This is absolutely the correct play from Game Freak. I'm glad that none of the rumors were true. This is actually awesome.
Get baited, Slade.
But then, and we're going to talk about this in my next question. Actually, let's go ahead and go into it now.
Yep.
I saw that Nintendo of America tweet, and I lost my shit. So let me ask the two of you. We're going to start with Sam. Is the game being set entirely within Lumio City a deal breaker?
It can be. It definitely like dampened my expectations because they've never done anything like this where it's not about a region, at least in like the main series games. And it's just a locale. Granted, it is the biggest locale, I think, in Pokemon history, if I'm not mistaken. Or at least it was when it came out.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, actually, even if you scale it to like some Paldea cities, it still is.
Mm-hmm. But
yeah, so it's and I really like Lumio City in general. Like I love that. It's very nostalgic for me. I love the music. I loved rolling around on my roller skates and getting lost because there was so much to it. I could never remember where everything was, and I kind of like that because that's very different for like Pokemon.
Perfect city
and
to
how
play
they design their world.
Perfect city to play hide and seek in.
For sure.
Yeah. And so, with it being set in the city,
those darn blackouts.
Oh, that's coming back for sure. Yeah. Sorry, guys, you can't come back here. There's a blackout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you said, Steeler, that Game Freak haven't done anything like this before, like in a mainline Pokemon game. When I saw the set entirely within, I got war flashbacks to Little Town Hero.
Yep, that's
right.
Exactly why I started seeing red. Before we get into that, JD, what do you think about it? Do you think it's a deal breaker?
I'm not a deal breaker, but it is like an aspect of Pokemon is that you go to these exotic locales and you catch the Pokemon that are native to those areas. You go to the mountaintops and that's where the ice Pokemon are, and you go to the special crystal cave in Kalos and that's where Carbink is from.
Yep.
And the scenery accompanied the experience of catching the Pokemon, and that was like an actual reason for the game to have 3D features also.
Yeah.
But putting it all in Lumio City, I mean, you can restructure the way the game works to put Pokemon there and make the basic gameplay function like that, but it does feel like something is lost when we're not going to those locales.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Which I feel like they could do, or it could be like, oh, maybe it's just the start of building the city, so it's not all futuristic looking. It looks like, I don't know, some country town or something. I don't know.
Well, it's actually you bring that because there is, with it being a Legends game, there's a very high likelihood, since it's a development plan, that this is before the city becomes, the great big city with all the skyscrapers and shit like that we know today.
Yeah.
So I think there is an element of things that they could do with the city that could make it, really not just interesting, but like make encountering Pokemon feel like a natural experience.
Yeah.
That being said, even though, because I've always erred on the side of being cautiously optimistic until I see the product and then I judge it for its own merits. Byron almost segued into this, and I actually wanted to hold until we got your opinion, JD, because it's a perfect segue. Does Game Freak's track record with the central location locked game called Little Town Hero concern you?
Like, yes, but also I don't think all of Game Freak worked on Little Town Hero, from my memory. So it's not like the full power of Game Freak was not working on Little Town Hero. So maybe with the full force of Game Freak and all of their developers, maybe they'll do a better job with that. That's just me, of course.
JD, what do you think?
I honestly don't know too much about this game. I've heard it got panned.
Yeah, it wasn't the best received game
And
for
yeah.
various
Putting it lightly.
reasons.
Putting it very
All I
lightly.
really know is that people didn't like it. I never tried it myself.
Yeah, probably for the best not to.
I mean,
I'm
also
hearing a
have not
general
tried it, so fair.
consensus about that bad review. Yeah.
Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, on the one hand, I am cautiously optimistic that it's going to be they're taking a different approach with this game,
Mhm.
as far as how they're structuring it. Because Legends Arceus did that for the most part, but one thing I didn't like about Arceus was that the environments were just not interesting at all to explore and to go through. So setting it in Lumio City entirely, like it feels a little bit limiting, but I feel like they can really focus in on making the environment interesting because, you've got people around, you're going to have buildings around, you're going to have places of interest to go to outside of just Pokemon themselves, the monsters themselves. So I'm optimistic about that part of the setting. I just, they really have to like flesh it out and make it feel like a real city that's lived in and these people live in. And I think they can do it. I mean, I've been looking at the trailer here as we were talking, and uh, I wanna say that like, yeah, this is kind of like an outline of what Lumios is going to be like. Maybe not wireframe specifically, but it just looks like there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
That isn't in X and Y, and so I'm kind of curious about exploring this place, and I think that's pretty promising. But it's still just one circle, basically, full of buildings. So hopefully, there's enough going on that feels like a complete game.
Yeah, unless you go like underground or something like that.
Yeah,
which maybe.
So,
but
something that I saw someone note on Twitter. So Hisui is based on Hokkaido, Japan.
Yeah,
and the same period where people started to colonize that island is the same real world time when people built Paris.
So interesting.
I definitely think that we're meant to see that reflection as much as possible, which includes like Paris has a huge network of catacombs under the city. So for Lumios to have that would be a way for the city to be expanded in an interesting way.
I love that.
Yeah.
And also explain all the unknown too. Wow, good on you. I did not know that.
Yeah.
It will not be like the fully built Lumios yet. It'll be we'll see it under construction. I mean, they pretty directly stated that it's Lumios under construction, but yeah.
Well, I mean, damn it, you've reinvigorated my hype a little bit. I did not know that. Here I was about to go scorched earth on this. Okay. So
I'm still a little bit worried because I want to go to Kalos's like interesting other locations. Like,
yes,
the region has lots of things to offer besides just the one city. But
yeah, I wanted to see Geosense Town. I wanted to see Anastar City. I wanted to see like those mines on the east part of Kalos where Zygarde was originally found. Like, there's a lot of stuff I wanted to go look at.
I low key think we will still see a lot of those locations, and there's kind of a misunderstanding going on.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's some sort of misunderstanding, but
the Nintendo of America tweet being a misunderstanding would be the funniest thing, even though it in black and white, but it says entirely within. So
it does say that. It does say
it's
that.
been confirmed by multiple sources outside of just that Nintendo of America tweet. Yes, the game will take place only in Lumio City.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess, optimism versus, pessimism is an interesting conversation to have because The reason why I brought up, Little Town Hero is because that is the only Game Freak made comparison we could really make to a central locked location for, a video game for them, right?
Yeah.
It's the only one they've made of its kind. And to, put it bluntly, it's an absolute fucking disaster.
Maybe that was the testing ground for that for this game. Maybe.
Yeah, because the problem with Little Town Hero was it just not only is the location itself not very interesting, which I don't think will be a problem with Lumio City, but the gameplay loop for the first 10 hours is either bad guy or monster invades town, you deal with it, and it just repeats that ad nauseum to the point to where you're just sick of it.
Yeah, roll the dice. Roll the dice, get lucky.
They're building Lumio City. They're going to have to, factor in you being able to catch Pokemon, because you can't have a Pokemon game where you're not catching and battling with Pokemon, right? That would just be I'm sorry, what is this?
Yeah, right. It's got to have the basic Pokemon experience.
Yeah, because it's a mainline game.
So what makes me concerned is, it's very easy to picture a reality where, hey, we're building Lumio City from the ground up, but every now and then wild Pokemon invaded. You have to stop them. And they just repeat that loop ad nauseum.
Oh, that would be terrible.
And literally copy the Little Town Hero playbook.
Oh, that would be terrible.
It could be part of it. I could see that for sure.
Yeah, I could see that being a part of the gameplay loop, but not the entire gameplay loop. Otherwise,
so when I say that I am concerned, I'm not just slightly concerned. I'm fucking terrified for this game, because to me, I think we're all justified in feeling that Game Freak kind of just has a tendency, because again, most of it's because of the crunch that they've been forced into.
Yeah.
For over 2+ decades of having to release a Pokemon game either yearly or every other year.
Yeah.
We get that. So, but the problem is now they have a reputation of really bad quality control. And then the one time they get a team that gets a development window to do something other than Pokemon really, prove their worth, it's Little fucking Town Hero and the disaster that ended up being. So, it's really hard for me to feel optimistic about a game locked in a central location. But you guys have talked me off a ledge a little bit, especially you, JD. I think, hearing that, it takes place within that same time period of, Hokkaido and whatnot.
Yeah.
I think it's really fascinating. I think they could do a lot with that.
Yeah.
I think there is a lot they could do with this concept, but yeah, I think there are reasons to be concerned about it also. I mean, I just want more than crumbs of details.
more than crumbs.
For them to release, it's all going to be in Lumio City, and then say nothing else about how they're going to make that work. I would like to know more about how that's going to work, actually.
Yeah.
Some more details would be cool, but
yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
And
something that caught my eye is that a part of the trailer kind of seems futuristic, almost lots of neon lights and stuff.
Yeah.
So I kind of wonder if maybe there's a future and past element of this game, which Scarlet and Violet also kind of did.
That would
Paradox Pokemon confirmed.
That would be cool.
I definitely think that's likely. Based on how they presented it. There's the sketch work, and then it transitions to the futuristic thing.
Yeah,
they
with
do
all the
final
neon lights.
hey, here's the complete Lumios and the futuristic style, and then immediately fade to the not 1800s sketch of the city,
the sketched style. Yeah.
So and the ZA, the naming as well. There's something to that.
Going from the.
I do think there might be some sort of time travel aspect.
Yeah.
I think that would be super duper dope if they were to implement something like that. So now I want to be team optimism for a little bit. So one thing in some of the tweets that followed after, because we aren't getting any information on this game probably for at least another 8 to 10 months.
Shout outs to the next Pokémon Presents in June, maybe.
Yeah. A lot of people, because Nintendo of America and Game Freak both stated that this is going to be their most ambitious title.
Yeah.
So with Pokemon Legends Arceus being previously what they had considered highly ambitious. A lot of people with the centralized location and associated the word ambitious associate with a lot of other really successful games that have you locked in a central location, specifically a city. So a lot of people are making comparisons to stuff like Final Fantasy VII Remake's Midgar or Cyberpunk 2077's Night City.
Yeah.
Do we believe that is a realistic expectation for them to like achieve, or is that just copium?
That's
Absolutely
unrealistic.
not.
No.
Copium
I'd like
of the
that.
highest
No.
order. No, they're working with what 2013 hardware over here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not talking just graphically. I'm talking like, let's talk about what makes Final Fantasy VII Remake Midgar so good, or Cyberpunk 2077's Night City so good.
Yeah.
You could walk around and see the story of people just by looking at them in both of those games.
Yeah.
So like whether it's the struggle that everyday people are facing against capitalism and the end stage of like how horrible in-game capitalism and Cyberpunk 2077, or the effect that a horrible energy company is draining the planet of its energy. Yeah. And these people are more or less enslaved to these companies because they're also the only employer in town. And you see the daily struggles they face with like poverty and stuff like that. Below the Sector 7 play and all that stuff in Final Fantasy 7, remake, right? Yeah. I do not believe Pokemon can have that same level of storytelling by just showing, because they have not proven to do so. And Sam, you criticized Legends because you said exploring those, area wasn't like super interesting or anything like that. I disagree with the concept of like where you're exploring, but I agree with you like overall. But I think that's something I'd point more towards Generation 9. Those cities and routes were bare, like just completely barren. There's almost absolutely nothing to see. And then when you see some wild Pokemon moving at 5 frames a second just pop in out of nowhere, it just kills the immersion.
Yeah.
So like, are we supposed to believe that this same company that provides us stuff like that can suddenly produce and I think with it being confined to a city and it being smaller in scale, they'll be able to give it a lot more love and attention and detail that it desperately needs compared to stretching it out to a massive open world.
Yeah.
But I still don't believe they could reach that level of attention to detail to make it even remotely comparable to like Final Fantasy VII Remake's Midgar Night City.
Storytelling has never been the strength of Pokemon games. Even the most interesting of Pokemon stories, it's still like, okay, we get back to the RPG now? So I don't know. It's interesting to think about a Pokemon game that focuses more on story, a mainline game at least. I guess I want to believe that they could pull that off.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does make me a little bit nervous because it's going away from their element. It's going away from the more successful focus of other mainline games.
Yeah.
Because like Scarlet and Violet, you said it exactly right. The game feels really barren, and obviously the frame rate stuttering constantly gives you a headache and takes you out of the game. But as far as it like purely as an RPG, like progressing through the game like any Pokemon game, I think it was fine and was even better than a lot of other modern Pokemon games. But again, a game that, had a story only for the purpose of keeping you going. It wasn't the reason you were playing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we also have to consider like who they make these games for.
Yeah.
Like they have to make them accessible to everybody, and that includes children, So
Timmy.
Yeah, which is the main audience.
So we got to
for
make
Pokemon.
sure little Timmy understands what's going on, that he's following along with what he's doing and all that. So I don't have any real expectations as far as immersive, storytelling through the environment, through the characters that they don't have to like beat you over the head with, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think there's some room for that. Like they could but it won't be like the focus of it for sure.
Yeah.
Legends Arceus actually introduced the concept of dying to a Pokemon attacking you.
True.
Which was kind of crazy when they would mention that.
Would never thought they would go there. It's such an obvious thing, for an adult to think about, but obviously, wow, to actually acknowledge it.
Yeah, but I feel like that ended up being a better lesson for kids who play that game too, because it's you can't just go out into the wild and expect there to be absolutely zero repercussions.
Yeah.
For anything. It was very much, hey kids, this is actually dangerous, so you need to take it seriously.
Yeah, basically that one TikTok of that teacher dude going, the more you fuck around, the more you're gonna find out. Basically.
Yeah, like Sword and Shield introduced the wild Pokemon running at you. This giant teddy bear runs at you at Mach speeds. Then you just enter a Pokemon battle when it catches you. So it's it was a funny moment, but now we're back in where I'm used to. When you wake up that Snorlax in Obsidian Fieldlands, that's 20 levels higher than your Pokemon, and it actually runs into you and kills you for real. Yeah, it was it was a different experience for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I guess this is more Legends Arceus talk now. I think the one thing that really worked out to that game's favor too is the story also emphasized it pretty heavily at the start too. It was with the main character even got to town to begin with. Cyrus's ancestor, I kind of forget her name sometimes. It's off the top of my tongue. She basically hey, you're either going to work with us or we're going to send you out to the wild. Well, you will die. And they set a very serious.
That's pretty much verbatim,
right off the bat. So it's listen, you're gonna fit into our society. You're gonna work with us. It's gonna be great. But make no mistake, you cross the line, we're gonna bash you out there, and you're gonna die. Just straight up. You're not going to be able to survive on your own out there.
Thank God the bar for being successful and useful was extremely low, and catching a bird and a rat.
Yes. Well, I mean, if you believe that game story at its face value, people there didn't even have the general ability to really catch Pokemon at all.
True.
They weren't gamers like we were.
Gamers.
Exactly. Yeah, but that's a great thing about Arceus that I did enjoy is that they took advantage of the setting and setting it in the past. The idea that Pokemon were not always as tame as they seem to be in the present day games.
Yeah.
And the development of, humanity and Pokeballs and technology and all that, kind of tamed wild Pokemon to an extent.
Right.
And so going back to before that was pretty cool to see.
All right, so segueing that into Legends Z-A, because I think the seriousness of the situation for the story and whatnot was one of Arceus's really strong selling points. I guess I wanted to talk a bit about the catching Pokemon mechanics in Legends Arceus and how that's going to translate to a game that's pretty much one entire city locked location. You're not going to be out in the wild. You're going to be in a developmental area.
I think that the wild must come to you in Lumiose. It still must be an action RPG. Why would it even be called Legends if it weren't going to copy the most basic aspect of the gameplay of Legends Arceus? I think it still will be copy and pasted in that way. It's just how will they bring the wild into the city that is an interesting logistical puzzle.
I have a bit of a different take. I think maybe they do another different thing, in that the Legends series is their more experimental series where they're trying different things.
That's actually where I was going to go with this, but go on, Byron. I want to hear.
Oh, no, you go on. You have more detail. I just have the theory that, that's my thinking. Maybe Legends is the series where they try different things out that may or may not get used in the mainline games.
Yeah, so I wasn't going quite that far with the idea, but I was going to allude to that maybe Legends isn't in regards to like the main core mechanic as being it's like capturing Pokemon gimmick in the overworld, but it could be more of a like, hey, this game's going to put you in the past, so it's a Legends game. So its mechanics could be entirely either unique to it, or they could even just go straight back to the basic main series Pokemon title collection thing. I don't think it being a Pokemon Legends game automatically makes it to where the catching mechanics are going to be the same, and the core gameplay loop will also be the same.
But it could also be the same.
Yeah, it could be the same. I think it's more likely it's the same, but like, there's a high possibility I think it could also be different.
Surely the Pokemon models standing and walking around in the environment is here to stay, I think.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah.
That's going to be there for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, because they've already done the work on, what, how many Pokemon are, like, in Sword and Shield and, like, Scarlet Violet? Like, at least, like, half? Maybe half of the Mons ever in Pokemon?
More
at
than
least?
half.
Yeah, more than half.
Yeah.
More than
For
half.
Scarlet and Violet, I think outside of raids, it's literally all of them.
That's, yeah, they have the work done already right there. Why wouldn't they use it?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And it would probably save on game development costs, which has been a big thing in the industry, but that's another talk for another day.
Well, yeah, but the main thing I was alluding to is when you run into one of them, it could be like Sword and Shield or Scarlet and Violet, where it just puts you in a battle.
Yeah.
Instead of every encounter is a life and death situation, and you have to avoid the
Yeah.
Pokemon attacking you.
Or
And then like try to either finesse around it and catch it, or battle to weaken it and then catch it.
Yep. Or maybe it's something completely different. Who knows?
Yeah. I don't know, Sam, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it could be either. You know, I guess it depends on how immersive. Like if the battling occurs in the open world, like Arceus, you know, where you're not. It doesn't cut away to a battle screen or anything like that. I don't know. To me, either way, it doesn't. I'm not really thinking about that aspect of it, even though I really didn't like the mechanics of battling in Legends, Arceus, but that's not because it was seamless. I just didn't like that, the speed, the way that whole thing worked. It felt like you were forced to take damage or lose or whatever. Like it wasn't turn based in the same way.
Oh, I know exactly what
Or
you're talking about.
turns weren't,
Yeah.
Yeah.
all of that. Yeah. So I'm hoping that
would
doesn't come
truly
back
suck
to.
for actual PvP battling, like against other people.
Yeah,
They would need to adjust it for that to.
Yeah, it would.
Be
The
fun.
way it currently exists, it'd be impossible. Well, that was actually our next topic. So Legends Arceus introduced the new gameplay style for Pokemon battles with the agile and strong styles.
Yeah.
I think I already got your opinion off that, Sam, on what you would prefer, but let me ask you, JD, would you like to see the return of the agile strong style battles? Would you prefer the original style, or would you like to see them try something entirely different?
The agile and strong styles, I really feel just need a little bit of tweaking. They needed like a better explanation, especially like the turn order and like how agile styles would like give you 2 turns in a row sometimes, but then sometimes the little counter in the corner would actually just straight up lie to you. And
Yes.
Damn.
I don't really know what was going on there. The game didn't explain it adequately, but
Damn, the game lying to you?
No, it does. 100%.
The game's user interface literally does lie to you.
That's actually insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way it's calculated is when you use an agile or strong style move, it actually factors in your Pokemon's base speed. It compares it to theirs. And then if you're, I believe, over, I think 1.5 times their value, that means that the Pokemon on the next turn is going to be able to retaliate if you feint it, regardless of which style you use.
Mhm.
But if you're over that value, you don't have to worry about that. But the main thing is the interface straight up lies to you, and sometimes it's really hard to predict it. It feels kind of like it was slapped together, but like
Yeah.
all the Pokemon games of the modern century. That didn't get the development time it needed to really get fleshed out.
Yeah.
It for sure needs tweaking. Yeah, like even from like a strategic point of view, the speed stat is already king in Pokemon. It's already extremely important to move first before your opponent.
Yeah, it's the most
And
valuable stat in the game.
Arceus to make changes to the system that emphasized that advantage even more was like, okay, I'll just have an Electrode on my team. Cool. Yeah, I got 3 turns in a row because I paralyzed him. That's great. I love my turn based battle style RPG.
Turn.
Yeah, with an Electrode specifically with paralysis, with paralysis you could get up to something crazy like 6 turns in a row
Yeah,
God
before they get to
damn.
move. It's ridiculous.
Things could get very, very crazy.
Yeah, base 150 speed Pokemon going and get something that's very slow, and you paralyze it. It's like, oh man, that Pokemon's not moving, and that's gonna die.
That's how you choose any fight you're having difficulty with. Get Electrode and Thunderwave.
Yeah.
Yeah, because not only that, but also when you use a fast Pokemon, you don't have to worry about immediately getting revenge killed when they swap in too.
Yeah.
But like,
God,
I don't
that
know.
was my least favorite aspect, dude. I was so frustrated with that. Like, seriously, there's nothing I can do. I just have to take this. Cool.
It's not for the Nuzlocke.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I gave up on that like
No,
immediately.
yeah,
Like, okay, this is not that kind of game.
No, the
Let's
game
just
does
enjoy
not
it
want
for
you
what
to
it
do
is.
that.
Yeah.
And,
Someone has probably locked
Oh,
it.
I'm sure
but-
they have, yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to be on the opposite end of that aspect because I actually think the fact that they could come in and immediately revenge kill you was actually one of the better aspects of the game because it forces you to really think on your feet when you decide you're going to feint a Pokemon. And depending on what the rest of their team is, the problem is the game doesn't have enough battles to really take advantage of this. There's really only 2 battles that require you to actually have a thought process and use your brain in regards to, your team and then what comes in.
Yeah.
If there
Right,
were
that's
more
another
of it,
thing
they could
about
expand
it.
it on.
Yeah, there just wasn't enough to like train the player to really grasp it. And as you guys mentioned, like the UI was it wasn't, it just did not explain it well enough, and it did not use it well enough. It was, in my opinion, a failure. I did not
Yes.
like it.
I completely agree that the UI is a failure. And I also do think the system itself is a failure. But I do think the system has a lot of potential because I think if they tweaked it a bit, and I guess I want to go into specifics about what they do for the tweaks. If they made it to where instead of the speed stat deciding what turns you get versus the other Pokemon or not, and they only locked it specifically to the styles themselves, so that, for example, instead of thinking about which Pokemon goes faster or which Pokemon slower, and then because if you use Agile style, you will always go twice and never any more than that, unless they also use Agile style, which that will mean whoever has the higher speed stat will have the tie. And then for the revenge killing aspect, that would only happen if you used strong style to feint a Pokemon. So you would take a calculated risk on, hey, this Pokemon in front of me has got to go. I am willing to take the free hit or possibly even feint afterwards. I am actively making this choice when I use strong style, but I don't want it to happen randomly. Or I don't want it to happen if I kill them with a normal move or an agile style move. That way,
Which is just like clicking Hyper Beam in real Pokemon.
That is the factor of risk versus reward, I think, you could have with the 2 styles. Because, maybe you're using Agile style because you think that I have to go first before my opponent or they're going to neg me. But then the opponent could be like, I'm going to use Agile style, but it won't feint the enemy Pokemon because the move won't be strong enough. But I just want to get some guaranteed damage. But they could call your bluff and not use an Agile style move. And then you hit them with something weak, and then they just hit you back with something like twice as hard. So I guess for the Agile style balance, they heavily nerf how much damage you're doing, and you get to move twice or whatever. And then if the opponent also decides to use a normal style, to call your bluff, so to speak, then that could be like a double-edged sword that they could really bounce on. So instead of trying to be complicated with the stats, they should have just made it entirely based off the styles you were using. I guess that's what I'm getting at.
I think that's a good call. And yeah, like in real Pokemon, if you kill something with if you use Hyper Beam at all, that you're doing so knowing you have to spend a turn recharging. There are a lot of more powerful moves that have some sort of turn-based cost to them. So I like that change to strong style. And yeah, agile style was just yeah.
Yeah, agile style
incredibly broken.
even reducing it, because I think it was like what 33% weaker if you use agile style.
Like that. Yeah, I don't know.
It needs to be like 75%. Straight up,
And
that's just way
and
too.
using it
Especially if
on
you're gonna
like
go multiple times, too strong.
using it on a status move, which it doesn't change what the status move does at all. It just makes you use one extra PP. Yeah, that's not really a consequence.
Yeah, and either that or maybe you do some like it's hustle to where it also loses some accuracy as well to make it like you're gambling every time you use it. But like, I don't know, Sam. Do you think that would be enough to fix it for you, or do you think it's just irredeemable?
It's got potential, yeah. Just to make it more of a strategic choice, and also just they got to communicate what the hell's going on better. I mean,
absolutely.
Come on, man.
Yeah. But
I gave up on even caring because I guess to the game's credit, it barely forces you to battle, and the times it does, for the most part, I didn't beat the game, but up until the halfway point, it's not really anything crazy strategically, so you could just brute force your way through it. But I've heard stories of just people dying constantly at the final real like trainer battle because they probably didn't know what was going on. They didn't know what they were doing, how the mechanics worked, and for once the game like actually challenged them to use it. So yeah, not great.
For all the mechanical faults of the game, the final fight to me was one of the most fun Pokemon battles Game Freak has ever designed.
Ever. Agreed.
Yeah.
So like it's weird because
100%.
like I agree that like the battle system itself is like inherently extremely flawed, and the game does zero favors in trying to teach you it in anything. But to me, the final battle is why I think this is like the system has so much potential. The reason why I think the final battle, we're not going to spoil, even though the game's like 4 years old at this point. The reason why the final battle is so great is because it forces you into this basically like straight up death match against somebody else that enforces a challenge on you that I don't think a single other battle does in the entire series. Like, period.
In every other battle in the game, you can just have more Pokemon and just win the sack war. You're just revenge killing each other, but you always have more Mons, and you could make them over leveled if you really wanted to. I mean, you could do that for the final fight, but they do a pretty good job of making the level scaling correct for that fight. But in that final fight, no. If you're just trading sacks, you will lose. And the mechanics 100%. Of the game encourage that to happen. So you need to figure out how you're going to stop that from happening.
Yeah, because without getting too much into spoiler territory, it is the one battle in the entire series you will be outnumbered.
Yeah.
And you will have to, especially at the nature of the game, with like they could come in and revenge kill you immediately. You're going to have to strategize every step of the fight, and I'm willing to even go as far as say it might be the best battle in the entire series. And it's crazy considering it's with a battle system that doesn't work like it should. Straight up lies to you, and like it's like very flawed.
I mean,
but
can we be honest about other Pokemon games and say that none of them are that challenging? Like,
no, they really aren't.
They really aren't. Like, people talk about how Cynthia was so tough. I never died to Cynthia. Like, I figured out what to do. I don't know. I mean, she is tougher than the average champion, but I mean, I'm not going to say I've never lost a battle in those games before, but this definitely challenged me on a strategic level like no other Pokemon battle ever has.
Yeah. And I feel like that's why they need to tweak the system because I feel like something like this is what showcases the potential of it. I just feel like I don't like the idea of just abandoning it because like they kind of did a shot at each other the first time. Because ultimately, I think it might even be a better system for at least against NPCs,
Against
not
NPCs,
against other
yeah.
players, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the big thing to remember is that mega evolutions are gonna be here.
Ooh.
Ooh, let's talk about that. That's actually the next time. Byron, you're such a god at like segueing. My God.
Yeah. I was fucking waiting for the opportunity. But yeah, so the big is it appropriate to call it a gimmick?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the first
Yes.
regional
Yeah.
gimmick.
Yeah, the big
Yeah.
regional gimmick of
It's
X
a
and
gimmick.
Y were the mega evolutions, and since this is a Gen 6 game, basically, the mega evolutions are going to be back. How do y'all think that's going to tie into the gameplay and just overall the game itself?
Yeah, we could. I mean, I'd like to see the mechanic explored more because, I mean, it played a role in the story of X and Y, but I never got the feeling that it was super fleshed out, and
It
there
really
could be
wasn't.
more to the story there.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I like that they're coming back just because they've been gone so long, but
Mhm.
it's not they're it's not a perfect gimmick. Like there's a
No,
reason
it's
why
a
they're
very
not
unbalanced
back
mechanic.
or haven't
Yeah.
been back.
Well, it's confined to a short list of Pokemon that can do it.
Yeah.
And every generation thereafter, they created gimmicks that any Pokemon could do, which I found to be a lot more freeing personally
Yeah.
because I could just make the team I wanted. I didn't need to slot a Mom that could Mega Evolve. I could,
Right.
I can strategize my Terra types however I want.
Yeah. Or you could strategize whatever Z move you want, even though I personally
Right.
think Z moves are a terrible mechanic for other reasons.
Z moves are pretty boring.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
super
whatever.
boring.
Yeah, I
It's like
counted.
Lamau delete a Pokemon button. That's essentially
Yeah,
what it is.
Yeah, I counted there
There's a
were.
cutscene.
Yeah, I counted there were 28, I think, different Pokemon with like 30 total mega evolutions because I think two or three Pokemon I think had different like types of megas.
You're thinking of Charizard and Mewtwo.
Yeah.
That had 2 forms each.
Yep.
Yep.
And I think there's a bit more than 30 Pokemon that can Mega Evolve total. But you're right that it's not many.
It's not a
And
lot.
They're not balanced at all. So, like, when you see a team and you see which Pokemon are on that team, you know exactly which one is going to Mega Evolve.
Yeah.
100% of the time. You see a team Rocket like Machamp, Greninja, and Charizard. You're like, yeah, that Charizard Mega Evolving all over my ass, and he's going to blast me to Sunday.
If my opponent on Pokemon Showdown has a Kangaskhan in a Gen 6 or 7 battle, I know that bitch is Mega Evolving. I know you did not bring regular ass Kangaskhan to this battle.
Yeah, same with like Lot Bunny and like stuff like that. Like you already know which the reason. Okay, because like here's the thing: it's like a balanced nightmare. It's pretty terrible. But I feel like in terms of like what the mechanic looks like, what it does for older Pokemon, stuff like that, it's also the fan favorite mechanic for a reason,
Yeah.
right? Because even though I think the best mechanic or gimmick they've added is actually terrestrialization,
Agree.
it's not appealing to look at or very cool, like at all.
Yeah, also agree.
Yeah.
Like Mega Evolution's like, holy fuck, my Pokemon just digivolved past its final form.
Digivolve.
It became it achieved God Key and it reached a form beyond Super Saiyan. It's cool, right?
Mega
cool.
Rayquaza did in fact reach levels never before seen.
Yes, it did.
Yeah,
That
who
is the
would go
funniest
between Mega
Pokemon ever.
Rayquaza and a
We'll
Super
never
Saiyan?
convince me otherwise.
But like, I don't know, Sam. What do you think about it? Because like, I'm actually kind of curious because I know you don't particularly care for the mechanic itself.
Well, I think there's cool aspects to it, and then yeah, there's issues I have with it, like because I've been playing a lot of Pokemon Go lately, and the mechanic exists there,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very interesting when you line up all the Mega Pokemon together, like that game does. Um, like there's not a whole lot of variety in some respects. I'll give you an example. Electric Mega types
Mm-hmm.
or electric types that can Mega Evolve. Do you guys know how many electrics can Mega Evolve?
If I
It's like
Top of your head.
Manectric, Ampharos.
like 3, if
Good
I had to
job.
guess.
You got them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just those two. You're
How-
right. It's just
How
those two.
about
Wow.
ice types? How about ice types?
What is there? 1?
Glalie,
And Abomasnow.
no.
Ah,
Obama
2.
Snow, yeah.
Congratulations, you got all the ice type Mega Evolution. You see what I'm saying? Like it
Yes.
was not distributed very evenly. Like a lot of fan favorites got them, and then a lot of like weird one-offs got them because, say, the Hoenn remake came out around the time of Mega Evolution,
Mhm.
and they just needed to flesh that out. So it felt like it feels like Mega Evolution. If they had continued down that path, I think it would have. I think it would be in a better place for sure. You know, like if they kept working on the mechanic, but um, it's like there's that issue with it, and then there's another issue I have with it where a lot of these megas could have just been a permanent evolution for a lot of these Pokemon that really
Yes.
needed it.
Yeah.
Mega Houndoom, you look at Mega Houndoom, that to me just looks like an evolved Houndoom. Okay. And a lot of
100% agree.
Pokemon could have used, I would prefer that they just have a permanent evolution that has its own Pokedex entry. And that's kind of the way they've gone recently with things like Farigiraf and the Dunsparce. I like that more than that. I like that way of like juicing old forgotten Pokemon
Yeah.
over,
Yes.
we gave them a temporary, form, but you can only use one of these, and why would you ever use a Mega Ampharos? Like, so they
Yeah.
designed this, but in the grand scheme of things, you don't really have a reason to engage with that mechanic unless you're using the super duper overpowered stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree.
Because like the thing is like because they made some of these megas like so powerful and whatnot, it basically necessitates the needs to use specific ones. So it kills the whole idea of bringing up like certain Pokemon that have been weak for God knows how long and really need a buff. Because there's also a lot of mega evolutions that happened to Pokemon that absolutely did not need them, like Garchomp, for example, Tyranitar, Metagross. Like, there's a lot of Pokemon that received megas that absolutely had no business getting a mega.
Yeah, that's the fan favorite
Hmm.
stuff, and that's the plot related stuff. But so how do you balance all of that with the designing of these forms? I don't know. I don't know if they're going to introduce new ones. I assume they will.
I hope they do, honestly. But, like, yeah, because, like, if they don't introduce any of them and they just bring back the ones that we have, then the mechanic's not going to improve any because it's just going to be the same shit we already have.
Yeah.
I guess the only difference is we didn't have abilities in Legends Arceus. So if that remains a constant, that means Megas won't have their changed abilities that they got, which is half the reason why some of them were as OP as they were. I can't imagine Mega Kangaskhan would be worth half a lick if it wasn't hitting twice.
Yeah, it wouldn't be. It really
has
wouldn't
Parental
stats,
Bond
don't
power
get
up
me
punch
wrong.
goes crazy.
be.
I get a Swords Dance and you lose 75% of your health.
Yeah.
Let's go.
But like it's also like the concept of like if they just distribute because like I don't even think distributing more is exactly the answer. I would almost say the Pokemon that need actual evolutions, they should actually take the megas away from them and then just evolve them. And then make it okay, only the really powerful Pokemon get mega evolutions. So then it's like, okay, now we're just gonna have an all-out Titans brawl between the best of the best. And then the other Pokemon get buffed the way they actually need to.
Yeah, I think what Sam said was right. Like, what Gen 9 did with Paradox Pokemon, making, they made Donphan relevant by making
Yes.
Great Tusk.
Yeah.
And you can still use Donphan if you really want to, but no, we made good Donphan, actually.
They made 2 good Dawn fans because
They
the
did.
Iron
They
Treads is
also made
also
Iron
really good.
Treads. They made 2 good Donphans. I appreciate them for that. That is way better than Mega Evolution, like in
Yes.
every way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you've even got Roaring Moon, who's basically a Mega Salamence, and Mega Salamence wasn't weak per se, but it was also overshadowed in a lot of respects. That's how crazy the power scaling is of
Imagine
Megas.
being a
Yeah.
Mega Pokemon that's banned to Ubers, and you're still overshadowed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lord, that's how you know the mechanics just absolutely fucked.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I guess let's touch on specific Pokemon because we're gonna see new Mega forms. I think that's almost a given. Is there any specific Pokemon that you could point to, be like, I wish this Pokemon had a Mega form?
I wish this Pokemon had a Mega form.
I mean, the
I
obvious
will
answer is
say,
Flygon.
yes, the
Flygon, yeah.
the mythical Pokemon, I think would be cool if
Interesting.
the
Yeah.
mythicals themselves, because they're not very relevant anymore because of
Yeah.
how their stats work and all that, and they're also hard to acquire. And I think it'd be cool. They wouldn't do this, but it'd be cool to kind of hit 2 birds, 1 stone, and make them more relevant in a battle sense, and also more part of like the lore and the plot, besides just being a one-off, like, hey, look at this really rare thing that no one can get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you
I
think,
don't know.
JD? You got one that you'd specifically like to say?
I'm a huge Swinub fan. That's my favorite Pokemon.
Yeah.
Mammothwine was cool. That was power creep by Gen 4 standards. Yeah, we're pretty far beyond that counting as power creep anymore. I need Mega Mammothwine in my life. I think
Dude, Mega Mammothine would hit. Oh my god.
I think
That'd be
that I
cool.
think that'd be pretty sick.
Yeah. So I might be crazy because I'd also like to see some of the megas kind of just redone for balance purposes. And
Mhm.
I am one of the biggest Charizard stands you'll ever know. I love Charizard to death. But even I get fatigued with all the forms that it gets constantly, between getting 2 megas, a Gigantamax before the other Kanto starters, and like stuff like that. I would actually like to see Blastoise and Venusaur get a second one. That makes them different.
Yeah.
Okay.
A Water Steel Blastoise Mega Evolution. It should have been Steel from the get-go.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with my username or anything like that.
No.
It would be cool though.
Nothing.
But I think that's something I like to see it balance out a bit. Now I know people are maybe we're going to see Mega Charizard Z and
Oh
Mega
god.
Oh,
Are
shit.
they memeing? Is
You
it
If
a
just
that
meme?
spoke it into
happens,
existence.
like I'll love it, but I'll feel like so bad
It's gonna
because it's like,
happen.
did I really need this? Like,
Yes.
both Megazord Y and Megazord X are already like top 10 megas overall.
No,
Don't forget Megazord A. Okay, it's Legends Z-A. We're gonna have
Oh
4.
Lord. Yeah,
I
but
think
that's
that
why I
A
like Blastoise
God.
Venusaur.
will probably be a new legendary. I'm guessing there will be a legendary added
Yeah, the A.
to
That's
this
a good
game. Yeah.
Yeah.
thing to speculate on. If you look at the artwork, there's like little tree veins, something like looks like it's sprouting through the bottom of the A.
Mhm.
So it could be about rebirth, right? Because Zygarde,
Yeah.
he's
Well,
like in charge of destruction or something like that.
the tree of
Or
Yggdrasil is like a central part of the myth that Xerneas, Yveltal, and Zygarde are a part of, right? Am I?
That's what I was about to touch on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they didn't actually make a Pokemon based on Yggdrasil itself. So I wonder
Oh
if maybe like Yggdrasil or something is going to be.
Right.
I don't know.
So maybe it could be like some Kyurem situation where they absorb the essence of life and death, like Zygarde and Eviltal. and does some like weird shit.
Necrozma appears from an ultra wormhole and absorbs Xerneas and Yveltal.
What I think is more likely and probably the worst outcome is we might see Mega Evolutions added to Xerneas and Yveltal, kind of like we saw for Kyogre and Groudon.
Yeah.
Like
And
origin forms. Yeah.
I think I can speak for everyone when I say the fucking deer does not need a Mega Evolution.
I would say Xerneas is good enough. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, it'd probably be worse because then at that point he wouldn't be able to hold like what is it, a white herb?
Power
Or
herb.
power herb. So
Yeah.
you can't Geomancy off the bat. But like
It's
they
Game
really
Freak,
don't
man.
need Megas?
You're underestimating them. Mega Xerneas' ability is Power Herb.
Oh my god. Or like the fairy aura is now all 2 charge moves become instant use. And moves like Hyper Beam have no cooldown.
Fun.
Oh god.
Little Timmy will never lose that final fight.
Lordy.
Alrighty, so we're getting pretty close to wrapping this up overall. So I guess we're gonna go ahead and get to our final thoughts on it. Overall, optimistic pessimism. So JD, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed Legends Arceus. I thought it was a refreshing change on the series. There were definitely aspects of it that were not as good as a traditional Pokemon game. So, you know, if I had my wish list fulfilled, it would have the best of both worlds. But we'll see what happens. I play a lot of Smogon singles, so I really appreciate that Legends Arceus made a ton of Pokemon that were very good and relevant in that realm, which is super funny considering there was no PvP in actual Arceus. But then when those Mon were playable in PvP, they were very good. So if it's the same people making those Mons, then I'm eating. Then the new Mons will be good and interesting in that realm. Maybe.
Absolutely. I mean, it's surreal seeing Samurai in OU. And
He's
not only
so
is
good.
it like good, it's thriving.
Yeah.
It's just like stuff like that. Sam, what are your closing thoughts?
You know, I'm cautiously optimistic. I think people need to, like take a step back and really look at. This is basically what everyone's been asking for: is give them more time to cook and innovate. You know, do something else. And like they did that with the first Legends game, but I do think it needed more time to cook. So now we're getting that. I am again cautiously optimistic about the setting. I think if they really, really flesh out Lumiose and make it feel like even half of what a GTA city could be like, just as far as the setting goes and the immersion, I think that'd be really neat to see in a Pokemon setting.
Yeah.
But you know, we really don't know much of anything at this point, so we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. My theory, first off, my theory on the whole Legends Arceus BDSP releasing in the same year, my theory is that Legends Arceus was supposed to be a later in the year game, and that maybe BDSP was supposed to get an extra year. But then, you know, COVID happened and all that. That's just my theory. And B, funny you mentioned GTA Stealer. This is releasing the same year as GTA 6.
Oh, well, Pokemon's not winning any Game of the Year awards. For sure.
It never
does,
bro. It never.
Yeah, but so even without GTA 6, there is like no shot there.
Yeah, but I'm curious just to see like what Pokemon fans think of it, how the game turns out, because there's not going to be any mainline or even spin-off Pokemon games that we know of as of right now in 2024, which is very interesting. So curious how what the direction Pokemon will be like from there, how maybe Legends Z-A could affect Gen 10, or the rest of the series, who knows. I'm I am a curious observer. That is all I'm going to say on that. Slade, your final thoughts.
Yeah, so I am going to choose to be cautiously optimistic. Again, my reaction to seeing the set entirely within Lumio City tweet had me seeing red, and I pretty much lost all hope and excitement from there. But I've had some time to think about it, talk myself off the ledge. Definitely the development time is pretty much my saving grace. I think the fact that this is getting so much time to be worked on compared to literally every other Pokemon game released in the modern day and age.
That's still crazy to me, by the way.
Yeah, is great.
It's nuts.
I would just like to see it fleshed out. I think that's just the most important thing. I think even if it has a similar gameplay loop to Little Town Hero, as much as I revile that idea, I think if it's fleshed out, Lumio City is an interesting place to explore and feels very much lived in, like Steeler was alluding to earlier. I think it has the potential to be a very good game.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're seeing Mega Evolution come back, and I think a lot of people are excited for about that, even though it's a nightmare of a balance mechanic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think being able to see these forms come back, possibly get the opportunity to see kind of neglected bonds, finally get, stronger in some way, shape, or form. Maybe even regional forms. That's something we didn't really touch on. That could also happen.
Yeah.
I think ultimately it's going to be pretty great, and I will be eagerly waiting for the day that the game's coming up to release, and I could actually judge it on its merits instead of sitting here in this speculation hellhole where I'm like, oh my god, it's going to be terrible because their track record's terrible, or hold on, they're cooking this time.
Yeah,
Hold on,
but
let
if,
'em
I'm going to be honest. If I had to bet money on it right now at this juncture,
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, they failed. Like,
Yeah, I'm with you there. If I were a betting man, that's where I'm putting my money too.
Damn.
I don't know, man. Yeah, just being like, yeah, it's just going to be in one city. Like, but we're going to have a whole game based on it. Like, are you guys sure you know what you're doing? I don't know.
It's a struggle to imagine how it will work compared to a normal Pokemon game.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
But so the caveat to that is like, because it's a smaller condensed area compared to an open world, because Paldea is a terrible region, I said it.
Yeah.
It'll give them the opportunity to flesh it out a bit more, because the system isn't going to be hopefully struggling as bad to get everything like rendered in there, right? You don't have the entire world right there. So like they have a smaller area where they could really hash in on the details and they could make it excellent. So like maybe it being locked to an entire city is the best news. But it's hard to feel that way with their track record. It's just it's impossible for me to think that way.
Right.
Maybe.
But that's gonna wrap it up for this episode. I just want to say, Steeler, Orf, I appreciate you both for coming on. It was definitely Byron and I's pleasure to have you guys here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was great to talk.
Yeah, thanks for having us, and thanks for being patient with me as I slept in the middle of the evening.
Yeah, no worries, my guy.
No.
Oh, go ahead, Bart.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So, where can our viewers find you guys if you guys, Twitch stream, YouTube, anything like that?
Yeah.
Well, you can check me out on Twitch at EL Steeler. I'm going to play Pokemon Crystal soon once I am happy with my stream setup.
Whoop.
I need to buy like a new desk or move things around, but I want to make sure I get that set up. But I will be playing through some old Pokemon games. Or you can check out MarioPartyTV if you like Mario Party.
You can follow me on Twitter at JD_Orf. That's ORPH. You can challenge Geisha Ninja on Pokemon Showdown if you wanna battle.
The GOAT Shedinja.
That's right.
For the lore, guys. It's worth it every year.
That's a no context lore right there. You gotta go to my
Yeah,
Twitter.
you gotta follow to get the lore. The only thing I will say is look forward to around Halloween every year. It's the best.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, thank you everybody for watching. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell, and hope you all have a good day, good night, and goodbye. And me and Slade will see you on Sunday for the not quiet week, Slade, of gaming.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Crazy week. Not good news either.
Yeah.
But that's it, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We will see you next time.
Bye-bye.